guys, welcome back. Today I'm going to talk about some US news. Trump has won the Iowa caucus. Great victory. Really solidifies his place as the #1 pick for the Republican nomination. Vivek Ramaswamy has dropped out. Ron DeSantis has dropped out. So now it only leaves Nikki Haley and Donald Trump to fight it out in New Hampshire. It's really looking like Donald Trump is just going to be the shoo-in. Everyone's saying it. All the commentators are in agreement. It's not going to be Haley. It's going to be Trump, which is very exciting news because it looks like it's going to be another Trump v. Biden showdown in November. How did we get here? I don't even know. But God, America is a basket case. They just couldn't find anyone else, could they? It boggles my mind. Anyway, today I'm going to talk about how the media covered the Iowa caucus. It's hilarious. You need to see these clips that I've got from MSNBC and CNN, leftist media outlets, who are just so desperate to censor Donald Trump and to not let whatever he's saying get out into the public sphere. You know, they truly think that they are back in the 90s where cable television and free-to-air television is the only thing that people consume. It's not like that anymore, guys. We get our news from plenty of resources and it's not censored, unlike these mainstream TV channels, as you will see. It's hilarious. It's scary. It's 1984. Let's look at the first one. It's Rachel Maddow, who you will know as the extreme left-wing host at MSNBC. She hates Trump. She's a total woke virtue signaler, and she's just trying to censor Trump out of oblivion. She wants us all to forget that he even exists because she's not even going to show us his face. All right, take a look.
At this point in the evening, the projected winner of the Iowa caucuses has just started giving his victory speech. We will keep an eye on that as it happens. We will let you know if there's any news made in that speech, if there's anything noteworthy, something substantive and important. The reason I'm saying this is, of course, there is a reason that we and other news organizations have generally stopped giving an unfiltered live platform to remarks by former President Trump. It is not out of spite. It is not a decision that we relish. It is a decision that we regularly revisit. And honestly, earnestly, it is not an easy decision, but there is a cost to us as a news organization of knowingly broadcasting untrue things.
Isn't that nice of Rachel Maddow? She is doing us the service of not airing Trump's victory speech because, well, they're going to take a look at it and they've got it covered. And if something substantive, whatever that means, comes out of it, then she'll show us. But other than that, we don't need to see it. This is their mentality. She can't even say his name. She literally says the winner is giving his victory speech. The part that really gets me is we will keep an eye on this. Sorry, #1, who is we? Because if it's Rachel Maddow and her posse of left-wing producers, I don't want to know what's getting through their censorship sieve. And #2, we're all adults. Let us make our own decisions of what we want to see and what we want to consume. Your job as the media is to air everything, especially something as big as a caucus win for the presidential nomination. Air it because it's in everyone's public interest to know about this. And then we, as intelligent, informed adults, can make our own decisions about it. If Trump is saying something stupid, that's up to us to decide. That's not up to MSNBC. And then she really clumsily and awkwardly tried to justify it, saying, the reason we're doing this is because we don't want to air lies. Okay, so I listened to the whole speech. Tell me where the lie is. Show me where Donald Trump lied, because I can't see it. I listened to the whole thing. It was about 20 minutes. What he spoke about in that speech was he thanked a bunch of people. He said if and when he gets into power, he's going to seal up the borders, which in my opinion is a great first step because they have a massive problem with illegals over there. That border needs to be sealed up. And immigration needs to happen in an orderly fashion. It's just logical. It's what any good president would do. He then says he wants to fix the economy. He wants to manage inflation. I can't see an issue with that. I think everyone would say that. He says he wants peace in the world, no more wars, and he has the history to back it up because when he was president, there were no wars under his watch. That's a very rare feat for any president. He said Russia v. Ukraine wouldn't have happened under him. He said Israel v. Hamas wouldn't have happened under him. And he probably is correct. He's got great diplomatic ties with China, Russia, the Middle East. He very well could have stopped those wars from happening. He says locally he wants to clean up the streets. He wants to eradicate gun crime. He wants to take back control of Washington, D.C. All of those things I think are very legitimate promises. I mean, who wants to walk down the street and trip over a homeless person every 10 meters? These are all very typical presidential nominee things to say. I don't see why she would have had to censor these from going to air. The only reason is because she has such a hatred of Donald Trump. And they are so vindictive. They hate the guy, hate his guts, and they're so threatened by him. They will just do anything to not give him any airtime. Well, we're just all lucky that no one watches MSNBC, I guess. Okay, let's look at the next one.
Baby girl. We're going to seal up the border. Because right now we have an invasion. We have an invasion of millions and millions of people that are coming into our country. I can't imagine why they think that's a good thing.
Donald Trump declaring victory with a historically strong showing in the Iowa caucuses. If these numbers hold, the biggest victory for a non-incumbent president in the modern era for this contest. A relatively subdued speech as these things go so far, although here he is right now under my voice. You hear him repeating his anti-immigrant rhetoric. He did take time to praise his rivals, Haley and DeSantis and Ramaswamy by name. Rather un-Trump-like to do that. Gracious, but perhaps a sign of some message discipline, at least for one night.
Okay, that one was from CNN. It's hilarious how they just fade him out. They just start talking over the top of him when he's talking about the very crucial issue of mass immigration. They really have a chip on their shoulder when it comes to this issue. They just don't want anyone talking about it. They don't want anyone to say that it's a problem when everyone knows that it is. Cities in the US are being overrun by illegal immigrants. Let's call it for what it is. And no one is saying that the US doesn't need or want immigrants. Of course they do. That's what the country was built on, but they need to come in an orderly fashion. Texas has millions of people streaming through those borders every single year. And there's no paperwork. No one knows who's a criminal, who's fantastic, who will work, who won't, who has a disability. None of these things are being spoken about or are being checked. It's just basic immigration of a country that these things need to be checked. This is why at an airport we all go through with our passports. Why is this any different? Anyway, back to how CNN dealt with this. It's just classic censorship, isn't it? He starts talking about an issue that they don't want to address and they don't want to talk about, and they just slowly fade him out. It's comical, but it's also really scary because this is censorship at its finest. They aired 17 seconds of his victory speech before they cut him off. Now, if that doesn't show that they are so desperate and so scared of what he has to say, then nothing does.
And the big picture takeaway from that, and I don't mean to be, again, too dark, as you said, on this, but it is not. If we are worried about the rise of authoritarianism in this country, we are worried about potential rise of fascism in this country. If we're worried about our democracy falling to an authoritarian and potentially fascist form of government, the leader who is trying to do that is part of that equation. Mm-hmm. But people wanting that is a much bigger part of that equation. Right. And the American electorate is made up of two major parties. One of those parties has been flirting with extremism on the ultra-right for a very long time. They've brought them in a way that they haven't been central to Republican electoral politics ever before, and I know because I've been studying this. But once you have radicalized one major party so that those are the preferences of the people who adhere to your party, the leader is interchangeable. Mm-hmm. And yes, Trumpism is sometimes what we call it. Mm-hmm. MAGA movement is probably a better way to do it. But there is an authoritarian movement inside Republican politics that isn't being bamboozled by Trump. Mm-hmm. They are pushing Trump to get more and more extreme, because the more extreme things he says, the more they adhere to him. And that is coming from a very large proportion of the American right that adheres to the Republican Party. And that's why this is a Republican Party problem more than it is the problem of one man and his leadership.
Doesn't that tie together
Oh my God, is this woman for real? Did she just talk about fascism and authoritarianism in the same sentence as Donald Trump, the most freedom-loving, free-thinking, libertarian president that the US has ever had? The irony of this segment. Rachel Maddow, who is at the very best a socialist, at worst a communist, scaring people into thinking that Donald Trump will bring in fascism to the US. I have no words for this. Is this not the same person who this very night censored Donald Trump, censored everything that he said, and brought it upon herself to choose which parts of his speech that she was going to show to her viewers? What does that sound like? That sounds a little bit fascist to me. That's exactly what a media organization in a fascist country would do. The techniques that she is using to scare people away from voting for Donald Trump are also pure fascism. She can see the massive push away from Joe Biden and away from the leftist media that she is so desperate. She's grabbing the lowest hanging fruit. She's grabbing the easiest thing that she has to scare people. And that is fear. That's what the media does. When they have nothing else left, when it's a slow news day, when they're not getting clicks, they scare you. And to incite fascism and authoritarianism, when Joe Biden is currently running the country, the irony is just insane. And it truly is pathetic from someone who calls herself a seasoned journalist.